Fatum Betula is a first-person exploration game with graphics that are reminiscent of the PS1 era, which you see a lot nowadays as the PS1 becomes a very nostalgic console for the kids, now adults, who grew up with the original PlayStation. People around now, in their late 20s to early 30s, which would put them in prime age to be developing games now, but that isn't the case here. This game was developed by Bryce Butcher, who is a 19-year-old, which is younger than me, and that's kind of weird to think about. Obviously, the PS1 was out of its time. I'm 21, and sometimes I feel the PS2 was out of my time. But I also believe that you don't need to live in a console's zeitgeist to understand what makes it great or how it works. In fact, as the saying goes, hindsight is 20/20. So what is this game like? The best way I mustered up to describe it was, it's a horror, somewhat comedical exploration puzzle game, but it's very lighthearted in all the things that it does. It isn't particularly scary or unsettling, but it is dark and mysterious, which does work in favor of the exploration aspect. The puzzles are also, for the most part, simple, with some exceptions if you're trying to go for some of the more cryptic endings. One thing I did find a bit unintuitive though about these puzzles was how you mix fluids in this game. You can do it by dumping them in almost any body of water, which goes against all logic, even video game logic, especially given how most bodies of water in this game are rather large, and you are dumping small vials of liquid. And it's a bit annoying since a lot of the endings will require you mixing liquids, since liquids is what this game is all about at the end of the day. The premise of the game is to water the ancient plant, and what you water the plant with will determine the future, and like I mentioned, there are multiple endings to find. And that's where the core of the game is, finding the different endings, some more serious than others. I'm partial to the bone ending, no spoilers. Each ending takes about 5 to 10 minutes to obtain, that is, if you know what you're doing, but realistically you don't know what you're doing. Going into this game, and your first few runs of this game, will give you a couple hours of exploration. While the world is not big, it's bigger than it might initially appear to be. There are also very few characters, but they're all strange and somewhat quirky, and connect in an interesting and fulfilling way in terms of exploration with each other, which helps you engage with this world on these initial longer runs, giving you some sort of connection to make it more appealing to go and get all the other endings. There are 9, technically 10 endings in this game. They are numbered, and for the most part, the higher the number, the more complex it is to obtain it. The game definitely plays into a lot of gamer intuition, as the usuals what ifs, like what if I could climb this hill, or what will it happen if I fall down this ravine. It definitely has a tendency to surprise you. This plays into what I said about the game being bigger than it appears. And if you plan on getting all the endings by yourself, then I can see it being a long game, but in the way that I play these games, I mostly just explore and get the most endings I can before I get bored and just look up how to get the ones I missed. So for me, this was an around a 3 to 4 hour game, but your mileage may vary. Aesthetic wise, it is a nice looking game. Despite the PS1 inspired look, it doesn't go overboard with the fact. It is more the experience of playing a PS1 game on an emulator than it is to play it on a CRT TV, and I appreciate that. It's clean while still achieving the look it's going for. It's dark, but not in a dead of night type of way, more like a late evening. The soundtrack plays into the themes of darkness and solitude, given that it's very subtle and non-intrusive in the way that it's delivered, as a big part of the game can be mostly silent apart from your footsteps. As far as my recommendation goes, for the $8 it goes for, it's a nice time if you're willing to engage with it. Obviously this type of game is not for everyone and it is rather short, but I think it's worth a try. The value you'll get out of it will probably depend mostly on if you enjoy the feeling provided by the game. Of course, I think that goes for every game, but how much of the game's endings you decide to discover on your own as well. But overall, this is a positive recommendation from me. And that's been it for another review. This one is a bit shorter. It's a bit of a different type of game to the ones I usually review, and definitely made me take another approach to writing this review, as my goal tends to be reviewing a game as spoiling as little as possible of the narrative and the mechanics while still being informative. And these more out there games can be a challenge, but I hope I achieved something decent here. Well, I would like you to subscribe and like and comment and all the YouTube things. Watch all my other videos, that would be cool too. And that would make you a really cool dude or dudette. Peace.